Again, your book is full of so many good stories. Could you share a story from your career that really demonstrates what it looks like to really have trust in someone?
Let me give two stories. One of them is visceral, and then the other one is about backing up the people that work for you. So the first one I just said, so it's actually not in the book. So the good news is you get to hear it for the first time too.
All right.
Um, so my first Pentagon tour was in '93 to '95, and part of that tour was I coordinated the schedules of the demonstration teams, the Navy Blue Angels, the Air Force Thunderbirds, and the U.S. Army Golden Knights. And so during the winter season, which is from November to March of every year, we would coordinate the schedules for the three teams. And so I would go to their winter training sites. Well, it turns out the U.S. Army Golden Knights, their training field is right in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, which is about 5 hours south of the Pentagon, which is where I was working at the time. So as part of the scheduling process, I would go down to Fort Bragg and I would talk to the sergeants. Now, they're all non-commissioned officers, and you all know that the Navy's commissioned pilots fly the F-18 and the Air Force's commissioned pilots fly the Thunderbirds, F-16 Thunderbirds. And so, but the Golden Knights, they're all non-commissioned officers. Their boss is an 04 major, and all of them are Delta. They're all Rangers, and most of them are Delta. And so when I went down there to schedule them, this one particular time in 1994 to 95, the sergeant said, "Hey, Commander," I was lieutenant commander at the time, "you got to jump with us." And I go, "No, thanks. I'm good." I jumped out of a Tomcat. That's in the book. Not a perfectly good airplane, so I had to step out and stuff. But I don't feel like doing that. He said, "Well, President Bush is jumping with us," and I said, "That's fine. It's a bucket list item. He wants to do it. I'm good, thanks." And so then one of the sergeants goes, "Well, last week a 94-year-old grandmother jumped with us," and I went, "Okay, that's it. Of course, you can't throw a gauntlet down in front of somebody and go to do that." So a couple of weeks later, I drove down. I completed the scheduling stuff with the scheduling sergeant. I went to the rigger shop where they do all the para-rigger stuff. And I was taught by a guy named Andy, who's a Delta rigger, and he does custom parachute gear for cargo and stuff like that. And of course, outfitting all the jumpers. And so he was the Golden Knights rigger. And he says out there, "Hey, there's two ways we can jump. One is tandem, a guy's strapped to you, and we've seen it all on TV. And the other one is accelerated free fall, where you go out with your own parachute. A couple of instructors hang on to you at your upper arm and your thigh." And I said, "Well, I know how to work a parachute. I'd rather do the AFF thing, accelerated free fall." He's like, "Okay, this is what's going to happen." And so he's running me through all the kit and the gear and what I'm going to wear and all that stuff. And it was like military training. It's standard. I've been in the Navy now for 14 years. I've flown Tomcats for a couple thousand hours now and totally familiar with me. And so the next morning I go down to the drop zone, which is Rayford, North Carolina, which is where those guys jump down there at Fort Bragg. And we go up in their Fokker F-100 demonstration airplane. The same one you see at the air shows is black and gold and white. And there's a bunch of newbies that are sitting on a bench. And the only thing inside of this fuselage is just long tube, and there's two benches, one on either side for the jumpers. And there's a bunch of new people sitting there that want to be Golden Knights. And me and my two instructors. The two instructors are Delta guys, and they're both 5'6", and they're cement blocks. I mean, they're just like badass, right? And I know they can kill me with their pinky. Won't even know I'm dead yet. And they're the two guys that are going to take me out. And so we quick brief. Okay, we're going to jump out at 14,500 feet, 60 seconds of free fall. Here's the signals. We reviewed them yesterday. This means pull. This means scan. We'll give you these visual signals, and do this all the way down. And this, we'll hang on to you, and then you pull your own ripcord, and we'll track away. I was like, okay, cool. So we take off. Spiral left to 14.5. We're the first guys out. And so we get up, and there's one guy on the right, one guy on the left. And we kind of shuffle over to the door, which is on the left-hand side. And it's hard to do here on screen with you, but the guy on the left reaches down, pulls up this big cargo door. And all the wind rushes in. It's a little bit chilly. It's like, yeah. And 14,500 feet below is North Carolina countryside. And I went, "Oh, no, 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 no." I backed up like a dog. I skidded backwards, total, terrified, completely paralyzed with fear. I had never had a physical response like that in my life. I'd flown aboard carriers at night, so dark, you get a pit of pain in your stomach. You're going to get aboard. From the book, I went around that time, 7 times, night in a barrel. Yeah. I did not feel fear like that ever until looking out of that door to my certain death. And I look out there, and I'm backing up from the door into the cement block on my right. And he's like 2 inches away from my face. And I said, "Hey, you guys have a good time. I'm good. I learned a lot here. You guys have a good time jumping. I'll go down with the pilots." And the guy on the right says to me, "Commander, this airplane's going to land, and we're not going to be on it. We can either throw you out, or you can take us out. Your choice." Tom, in that instant, my fear disappeared. It went away. I mean, I went from total paralysis to, "Okay, let's go." And I took us out. His competence and my confidence in him, the trust I had in him, and those two guys, that they were going to save my life, and that stepping out of that airplane to certain death is going to be just fine because those two guys have my back. Total trust. That was a visceral reaction, and the one I talk about all the time. So the uncertainty of stepping out of that airplane to certain death and whether I was going to survive or not caused a fear in me that was paralyzing. And my trust in that person and those two guys, after looking in their eyes, was such that it took all that away. So what I talk about is, if you as a leader take away the uncertainty, you'll take away the fear, and people will trust you. And even when you don't know what's going to happen, they'll still trust you to say, "Okay, boss, I'm following you." The second one is in the book, and that's when CAG Zaps Latimer defended me for flying by the ship when we flew through the gunfire exercise. And when he asked me the question, so for the viewers, I got to fly Tomcats, perfect. I got selected to go to Top Gun, awesome. And so for the last part of the deployment we were on at the time before we went home, the Top Gun section, the 2 airplanes going to Top Gun, us 4 people flew together all the time and did missions all the time. We were in QB Point, Philippines. The ship was docked at the pier there. The airplanes were flown in and on the field, and we were doing a mission up over what used to be U.S. Air Force Base Clark in the Philippines, and it was a simulated strike. And then we came home flying over the South China Sea. Beautiful water. There's a little island in front of us. We go up over the island, pull down, get back down about 100 feet above the deck, and we see this cruiser is pointed right directly at us. And so it's like, oh, cool, flyby, and so we get down there, 4 Tomcats, 500 or 600 knots, and boom, go right by about deck level, 2 first, 2 behind us. Right between me going by and those guys getting there, there's a big white smoke puff. And the guys in the back go, hey, I think he's firing his gun, and they pitch off. And I didn't even see it. So we go back, didn't hear anything on the radio at all. And we go back in and land. Good break at QB, 4 airplanes come down. We had a great debrief. We slayed all the bad guys, and it went really good. So I go back to the ship, go get changed. And I'm walking through the kind of the blue tile area where all the big people are. And the Air Wing Commander, Ron Latimer, call sign Zap, sees me go by and says, hey, Nasty. He goes, got a second? Oh, yes, sir. So I go in there, and he was a very, very down-to-earth leader. Like we talked about trust, and especially when somebody's very, very senior. I'm a lieutenant in the Navy. He's a captain in the Navy. He's my boss's boss's boss. And he's saying, hey, come on in here for a second. I was totally comfortable with him. He was very good. And he goes, hey, you go flying today? Yes, sir. Did you go up and do the strike? Yes, sir. How'd you come home? Came down here, showed him, he had a map on it. Can you show me on a map? Yeah, I came down here and went over this island right here, went by, hey, we flew by a ship, kind of thing. He goes, yeah, the ship. Did you know they were doing a gunfire exercise? And I went, oh. All of a sudden, I'm heading out on Liberty to go off the ship. And all of a sudden I'm like, uh-oh, there goes my Liberty. I'm about to get in a lot of trouble. I got to write a report. I'm like, no, sir. Did you have your radios on guard? This is the emergency broadcast frequency. Yes, we did. Eight cockpits. Okay, so 4 airplanes, 2 cockpits, radios. At least one would have been, tuned to guard, but pretty sure we all had guard up. No calls. There were no warnings in the brief that there was a gunfire exercise off the coast. Don't go out there. There was no information that came to us that said, you're doing a gunfire exercise. So I tell him all this stuff. And he goes, okay, you going on Liberty? And I said, yes, sir. And he goes, go have a good time. And so I left. Went on Liberty. I find out from my skipper later on, the commanding officer of my squadron, that CAG, after that debrief, called up the captain of the ship, who had released a report to the entire Navy that said these 4 Tomcats of CAG 15, our air wing, that his ship was attached to, by the way, had egregiously violated safety regulations. They had completely not listened to guard calls. We had disregarded all communications, emergency communications, and flown through his gunfire exercise. And he told the message was coded to go to the entire chain of command of the Navy, all the way to the Chief of Naval Operations in the Pentagon. And so CAG called him up and said, don't ever do that again without calling me at first. These guys were doing their mission. And in fact, I told them that their secondary mission is always surface subsurface search, which is why they did the flyby of your ship. So he owned the whole thing. And he didn't even tell me, but the skipper told me later on. So he had my back. And that, of course, elevated the trust in me of him, and his trust in me, that I was telling him the right information. I wasn't trying to lie to him or obfuscate anything. But that kind of trust also endears you to somebody, especially when they were more senior than you.